It's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, very nice to meet you.
So, before we get into your work, I want to know this. 5 years ago, this pandemic was changing all of our lives. Everything about our lives was changing. How did you get through the pandemic of 2020, and how has it reverberated into your world in 2025?
Oh, good question. I think for me, I don't know. Everyone was like, "What are you doing in the pandemic? What's happening?" And I was like, "Well, I want to take advantage of this time. I don't want to like look back and wish I had used it more wisely." So, I think a couple things happened for me in the pandemic. One is I actually spent some time getting into like coaching, like building my coaching skills, and this is both like corporate type coaching, career type coaching volleyball. I mean, it's like a broad term, but I like went through some programs, went through classes, like things that I wouldn't have had time for because I
Yeah.
was sitting there in the evenings and spending time practicing. I just wouldn't have time for that. So that's something that I invested in. I also and by the way has still translated today. That's those skill sets that I've applied, the time that I invested, the people that I met for that. I mean, that's been transformative. Happy to like, dive into that. Um maybe like year one of the pandemic, I also took some road trips. So I hit the road with my dog. So we were still staying COVID safe. Why was that important for me? So I had moved out to Baltimore in about 2018, which is where I live today. Hadn't really explored like the East Coast a ton at that point. So I went up and down the coast, spent some time in the Carolinas, all the way down to Georgia, and I just think the part of our country is like incredible, like the coastline, the culture of these like small like seaports or like industry areas was incredible. So that just like opened up my eyes to like different type of living, which I love like exploring and understanding people. So those are probably like two big things. And then certainly just like connecting in different ways, reconnecting with people I haven't chatted with in forever just because we had time on our hands. Also just kind of evaluating like what relationships meant and how do we continue to hold those in a very like different and unique space. So those are the big ones. I also had a career change. I was working at Under Armour uh, just when the pandemic started and shifted into Hyatt hotels, which both were big industries impacted by the pandemic. Hotels or hospitality, certainly. I joined when the company was super small. But that was part of a intentional move. So also like career wise, it was just a big shift for me, moving into a different industry, different type of job, starting remote, weirdest experience ever. You get off a call where you're onboarding, and then I'm like, oh, I'm back in my basement. Like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So yeah, those were some of the big things. Like long answer, but I think it was about capitalizing on the time, about making moves both personally and professionally, and that's how I spent the pandemic.
So your career focus and what you're doing overall is very diversified. So to hone in and get an idea of what you do on a daily basis, I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds. It's career day, and one of the kids is curious and is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you
Yeah.
answer them?
Well, so 12-year-old answer. I know I work at Hyatt hotels. Has anyone stayed in a hotel? That's kind of what we do. We provide opportunity for people to travel. And for what I do is I work in leadership development and I do things like company culture. So I help people be really good about what they're doing. Everyone gets to be a leader in their job, and that shows up in a lot of different ways, just like it does for us in life. And in this case, for our 12-year-olds or in school, everyone wants to be a good leader and be a part of a team and be their best, and that's what I help people do is be their best. At Hyatt I help that at scale, which is across the organization globally, and helping build in tools, resources, systems to help move that forward. I also do some volleyball coaching on the side, so this is maybe not my everyday, but it certainly is a part of who I am, maybe on the weekends. So has anyone ever played volleyball? I was play actually in or coach in adaptive sports, so this is a slight change to how might traditionally people think about it. And I would always encourage folks to Google this, but if we imagine like a volleyball net, you're up at the net, you're standing, bring that net down lower. Sitting volleyball is now we're using our arms and our legs to move around the court, and that is a also a Paralympic sport. So I do that. I work with adaptive sports here in Baltimore, and I also do a little bit of support in USA Volleyball with their pipeline programs. So those are kind of the two big things I do.
So how do those feed off of each other? When you have two very different things that you're focused on. How do each of those enhance what you do to make you more of a complete whole?
Yeah, I think at the core of it, it's starting with like that leadership component, how are in bettering ourselves, like both in volleyball or sports and at work. I think most of us are in a pursuit of wanting to get better and perform at our best. And so it's about thinking about how do I help support those journeys of whether it's individuals or teams or in the case of Hyatt, entire organization. I think that that's like very consistent. And so it's about at the individual level, like, hey, Joe, like, what are you contributing? How are you showing up? How do we make some tweaks into how you're delivering work or how you're delivering performance on the court? And big picture, it's about like what's happening in this team or the organization that we can improve on, and what are the things that we want to support to like move the culture forward or to move performance forward. So that to me is the biggest through line. I also think for me, I've been very fortunate. I've worked at like very passionate places. So I think purpose in work, purpose in sport, all of that very consistent. And community, how you build community, support community, also very consistent across the work that I do. So those are the things like, yes, very different, different environment, different feeling, different way of potentially communicating in some cases. Right, we get into a huddle, we go out and play versus like, hey, we're moving about the corporate hallway. But I think those are some like consistent things. And by the way, I think I use both of those to like learn from both of those worlds to fuel the other world. So for example, I take a ton away from volleyball because the way that an athlete operates is every single day they're in pursuit. They're so focused on, especially at the more elite levels, advancing their skill set. They want to be, they're competitive. They're like, how can I beat the competition? What are the changes? What can I continue to learn and do? And in a more, in an everyday intentional way. In corporate, sometimes we're moving a little bit of a different pace, but the outcome is the same. How do I get better? And so I take, because of the speed and focus in sport, I think there's a ton that I pull over, just to name one example. So similarities, I also learn from one another, which is what I love. I think people appreciate. By the way, I bring a little bit of that sport energy into work with my team. We always joke about that. So I think it's just also like who I am, what I value, and how I show up in the world.
So when you were 12 years old, what was your dream job? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, I don't even know if I had an answer to that at 12. I mean, I think maybe like teaching would have been like in the space. Maybe This is a good question. People always talk about they like thought they like had this dream when they were little. I don't know if I had that. I think I had more of like what do I enjoy? What do I appreciate from other people? I think I had dreams of like working in an office. Like I saw my dad go to work. I'd like be like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go to work. I'm going to stack these papers. I'm going to do these, be important at the desk." But I think what that meant was I wanted to be a part of something. I wanted to lead something, but the one tangible might be like teaching. And I think that you know, but not a far stretch is some things that I do today.
Absolutely. So take me back to where you were born and raised, and what were these foundational elements of teaching and leadership and coaching? How did these seeds get planted and become who you are?
Yeah. So back to where I was born. I mean, I was born like grew up in the Chicago area. I think I have like those Midwest roots of certainly like being a part of community and caring for other people. I think that that's like maybe an early seed. I think I was in sports a lot growing up. I did all kinds of sports. I was fortunate enough where my mom like signed me up for a ton of different things. Everything from like ice skating, baseball, because there weren't a lot of softball options back then, swimming, gymnastics, like name the thing. So for me, that was also about the pursuit of, it was about learning experiences. I had great coaches. I had coaches that still today I'm like, that wasn't fun, right? Both of those memories stick with us. So I think also the drive to want to be like a positive influence in people's lives and be a part of like their learning journeys and continuing to grow, I think came from some of that. And I think passion, I'll speak to maybe like identity, like when you're growing up, you have your friends. We had like our neighborhood crew that we'd hang out with, that we'd play together, we'd ride bikes together. For me, that community is also, I think I mentioned community too in like more of the Midwest sense, but I think it's also about like who are you with? What are you in pursuit of your mission? Like when you're little, it's the mission of like, we're gonna play this game, like kick the can. Probably more than aging myself by saying kick the can, but like, hey, we're all in this pursuit of this experience together. And I think that shakes out today in like world of work and on the volleyball court, like we're all in pursuit of a mission together. And I love that. So those might be some early seeds. So those are like a few things like when you ask that question that come to mind. And I appreciate that reflective space because I don't think I've ever thought of like what are the things I experienced when I was little
Yeah,
that kind of have then like pulled through of like who I am today, other than maybe where I started, which is the Midwesternness in me.
yeah, yeah. So who's been a hero? Who's been an inspiration that's allowed you to not only dream, but to evolve into who you've become today?
Also, good question. I don't know why. Maybe we just got done talking about the Midwest. The first person that came to my mind was Michael Jordan and maybe the
Yeah,
Bulls. Growing up, that was like that was what a huge part of the city culture. For me, what that meant was like excellence, pursuit, um, really the idea of a team operating together. I saw a Bulls team that came together, but a lot of like very unique personalities, especially if you start thinking about like the Rodman years. And sorry for those that don't follow like that chapter of the Bulls, but basically like a unique team who ran two three-peats in the NBA. But it was a fun journey. So that came to mind first. But I think that for me, it's also probably the everyday stuff. Like I think about my mom, some of the like time that she put in and invested in and giving me opportunities and being a support system, always providing exposure to me, whether it's like I mentioned like the sports programs, but also just like having like play dates, having like spaces to go that were enjoyable. I also think about a lot of what comes to my mind is like my friends and their families. I spent a lot, fortunate enough to have like great friends, and I love spending time and had the opportunity to like also spend time with their families. Like we'd go on trips together. For me, those were extended families, they were communities, and they were spaces that then I started taking away like, oh, like here's who I want to, be when I grow up, and here's where things that I appreciate about these smaller communities. So those are the things that come to my mind. So the range from like maybe big picture or like, the whole like who's out in the world, but really I think it's more of the foundational things that I experience day to day, week to week, month to month that I look up to or that help shape me.
So if you can meet one person on the planet right now that you find fascinating, whether it's in the realm of coaching or leadership or entrepreneurship, who would that be? Who would you love to meet and talk to, hang out with for a minute?
Ooh, this is a good question. There's like so many people that just like flooded my mind. I think I'm just gonna pull on one because there are just so many people that like literally just like flooded my thoughts. I think that there's a lady named Sue Enquist who used to be the women's softball coach at UCLA, and she does a ton of consulting and work with different sports. In fact, I just saw a photo of her. It reminded me that she was at the Paris Olympics with the USA volleyball team, and what she came to a talk that I went to probably like 15 years ago, and just talked about leadership and the pursuit of excellence, the power of team. And it really stuck with me at the time, both of like what I do in my work, like my full-time corporate type of position, but also how I think about coaching, volleyball, that is. And so not only did I take a lot of lessons from her, which is really about like excellence and how do you take steps towards that and not lowering the bar, not lowering expectations, being who you are. Like she's a big personality. I appreciate that about her. But also like just seeing this photo the other day, I was like, you know what? Here's someone who made a career in a particular sport, has shared her lessons, but has now cut across different lines of sport. So in other words, like breaking down boundaries and bringing like her expertise to spaces. But what I love about that is it's all about the journey. Like I'm sure like when she started her career, it wasn't about like, oh, one day I'm going to be consulting across all these different areas. I'm going to go to multiple Olympics. It was about how do I be the best that I can and be the best for my team. And that's something I just truly, truly appreciate. But I love her journey since. And to me, that brings inspiration too, which is I don't have to just do one thing. I don't have to just like sit in one linear path. What's possible outside of like, how do I take the experiences, the people, my skill sets, and being able to apply that in different ways. So I would go there. And I think why would I want to meet her? Because I'd want to catch up. I'd be like, I saw you talk like 15 years ago. What have you been doing? What else has been taking shape in your journey? What else would you give advice on. Like, tell me about Paris. So I think that just of all the files, literally a million files, when you asked me that question, a bunch of people kind of came to my mind, but I'm gonna stick with Sue.
So let me ask you this. What's that motor in you every day that allows you to wake up, to do the work, to evolve your soul, to be there for other people? What is that for you?
I think it's just I get a lot of energy from seeing from like the connection and the journey and seeing people move through, I'll just say the journey, right? But that like is all big picture. But for me, it's like at work, I think about like what's the thing that I'm going to be doing today that I can see impact on, whether that's like in our organization or individually. We're going through a lot of change at work, which everybody is. I love being a part of like when as a team, we sit down and we're like working on a new project. How do we think differently about it? How do we flip this on its head and do it differently? Like, and to then see those, not just the light bulb moments, but to like see someone on the team like actually like pull their idea through and be like, yes, I did that. Like, I love the energy that comes from that. I also get energy from possibilities, right? What's happening tomorrow? What's happening down the road? What can I be a part of? I also think about like let's use today. Like I was excited about talking with you, right? Be able to have time to reflect, be able to have a conversation. Like I love that stuff. I love learning. I love connecting. So for me, it's about yeah, look into the day and knowing that those things will happen, and then when they are happening, like have the appreciation for them in the moment.
So let's say you walk into a room of everybody that you've worked with throughout the years, that you've coached, that's known you in a professional capacity, and you could tell them one fun story about your life, about maybe the first concert you went to, the best sport, best game you've ever witnessed, jumping out of an airplane, just maybe traveling to a magical place. What would be a fun story you would tell that room?
I think I started my career at the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. I love that chapter of my career. We did a lot of fun things, but I think one story would be that I had an opportunity to go with two other folks. We represented the United States of America at a program in Olympia, Greece, which is where the modern and ancient Olympic Games, well, modern games, Athens, ancient Olympic Games, Olympia. Greece, and so got to go for 2 weeks. We lived in this like literal adult sports camp where we got to immerse ourselves in what is the Olympic and Paralympic movement. How did it begin? Why is it important? Um, what can we all be doing in our communities to be thinking about sport and community connection, athleticism, or health? And it was a worldly program. Like there are people from everywhere. Uh, Nigeria, Germany, Canada, the Bahamas, like name the country. Like everyone's this huge melting pot of an experience, all in this like ancient space, talking about sport and community and the world for that matter. So yeah, I would definitely dive into that and some of the experiences that I had there. But even just like I think like sharing that out of the gate is something that I think is fun, just like reflecting on. But I definitely want to share that because it's different
Yeah, totally.
and it's a special time.
So my son is 20, his name's Miles, and he's on the spectrum, and I've been involved with Special Olympics for a long time, and I love getting into kind of the sector of sport that people don't think about a lot. I mean, it's definitely on the radar, it's definitely big, but when you get in that world, you realize so many fundamental aspects of why we're there and why we're doing what we're doing. When you see the spirit of them just participating and being there for each other, and that whole like just expression of just sport together. You lose that with all this money that athletes make and all of the you have to win everything you do. It's like it's just a different world.
Yeah, I mean, I think things are different. I mean, I love certainly Special Olympics. Like to your point, it is about participation and getting out there, and I think there's an important aspect of that as well. Like I talk about on the adaptive sports front, like having community and being able to bring accessibility into communities. 1 in 4 adult Americans have a disability. Like where, and that's just on the adult side of things. But huge amount of seen and unseen disabilities, but we don't have always have places and spaces for people to connect, to be able to like have healthy spaces, workout spaces, sports spaces. So I'm with you in the like how do we also advance like the participation side of things because it's so important to build community to stay healthy. I also think, on the other side, I mentioned like adaptive sports on like the Paralympic movement. That is about elite athletic performance, about competition. And I do think there is a balance. You talk about like getting paid and all this sort of stuff. You see the world of sport shifting, and it's just specifically in volleyball, like even in the NCAA level, that's definitely changing. I talk about to my peers in the space, and they're wondering like, hey, where's my career going? There's a lot that's changing from the athlete perspective of what they're in pursuit of. Um, and so I think just like all evolutions, it's like, what do we take from that that's positive, and what do we want to pay attention to that's opportunity? I think that what's been great is that people do get, paid. There's equity in the conversation. I'll hone in specifically. We go back to Paralympic sport for those athletes to get exposure,
Yep.
to get, funding, because prior to that, it's like volunteer, and they're like sacrifice. They already sacrifice a ton. Also, to have to sacrifice potentially like how you live to
Yeah.
do something that you love, representing a country, um, you know, is important to be able to get rewarded for those things. On the other
Absolutely.
side, to your point, I think it's about, how do you keep balance? And I think we're early days of athletes benefiting from the payment. So how do we also, if it's important to maintain community, to maintain like representing a school, I think that's the question we should continue to be asking, but not at the detriment of what the athlete has gained
Yeah.
in the experience.
So at the end of the day, what are you ultimately the proudest of? Everything you've accomplished and evolved to and become, what are you the proudest of?
I think just the people that I have in my life, the community I've built. Like I think I have like good people around me. I think I try to do good things in the world. Um, I'm most proud of that. Like when I see myself moving about the planet, if you will, I look around me and I'm like, these are some good people. We contribute in really good ways. We're kind to other people. We appreciate each other and the world that we're living in. And to me, that's back to maybe my Midwestern roots, but like that's what I appreciate. And I think that's at the end of the day all like anyone else can really hang our hats on. Like I could name the project at work that we did well on. At the end of the day, like if we were also rude doing it, like what does that prove? I'm just picking on one example. So yeah, I'm really proud of the people that are in my life, and how I've been moving about the world.
So at the end of the day, Carlee, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, everyone that you coach, everyone that you work with, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, I think that I'm a connector. I think that I'm passionate about my community. I think I'm a learner. I like trying new things, and that comes from both doing, from traveling, from conversation. And I think I'm passionate about caring for others. I think and I think that's something I'm always trying to those are all things I'm trying to check myself on. And so I think that continues to be who I am and what I want to be proud of. So that's how I would describe myself.
I like it. So if anyone wants to reach out, they got questions, they want to hire you, they want to learn more, any of the good business, where do they go?
LinkedIn. We'll have the link there, but yeah, feel free to shoot me a note, reach out. I'm always open to conversation and connecting with folks.
Okay.
Back to like what am I passionate about? Connecting. Reach
That's it.
out.
That's it. Absolutely. I'll put that in the show notes. Carlee, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you for your story. Thank you for the light you're putting into the world. I appreciate it. It's great to know you.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, we're out. There's
That was
actually
a
what
lot and fast. I was like, holy shit, I gotta think about these things.
that's how it happens. And you did great. I mean, you just hopped right in. And I think sometimes the questions can be rather large and daunting, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's just when you get to the marrow of it, and people don't have a lot of time, so it's almost like the game show where you have to get all the questions in, It's kind of that thing. So
For
it's
sure, for sure. Well, I have a personal note is that I am terrible at picking one thing. So well, who is the one person you meet with? I was like,
yeah,
oh no, no. It's just my own. I don't know if you have this. Like, someone's like, "What's your favorite food?" I was like, I don't
sure.
have food.
I know.
So hopefully I still got there with you because
Yeah.
those always are like not paralyzing questions for me, but I always like get my files get overwhelmed. In
But the
fact, I
thing,
just had to look up. I'm like, let me look up Sue Enquist to make sure I said that all the right way.
yeah, well, it's funny because doing jazz radio, everything's so cerebral and everything's so kind of off the top of
Yeah.
their head, and there's so much that you can delve into. But it's like, yeah, you were getting into that. This is where I'm at right now. This is what popped into my head. Those are the answers that are really good because that's it. That's the gut instinct, and that usually leads you pretty well. And like I said, my son's on the spectrum, so anytime he second guesses, I'm like, what was the first thing you went for? What was your
Yeah.
gut,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's usually a good way to go. But at any rate, this has been wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate it, and best of luck.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. So just